Hey, this is Digital by Computing. We're going to look at why I love Macs. So let's go and talk about it right after this. My name is Emilio, I work in IT, and as the name suggests, I love Macs. So my big thing with Apple is generally their products just work. It mainly comes down to Apple designing the hardware and the software. So Apple know that the software is going to work with their hardware. So you don't need things like drivers to have all of your components work because they design both. Yes, the parts inside of your Mac are, other brands like your hard drive and the CPU and everything inside of the computer are by other manufacturers, but these are chosen specifically by Apple because they're going to be more compatible with their hardware. Apple designs the hardware, designs the casing of the laptops, of the desktops, and then design the software that'll be fully compatible with their hardware. As opposed to your Windows fleet, your Microsoft, that will build the software that will run on Dell, on HP, on Lenovo, on all these different brands of computers. Yes, they work, but a lot of the time you have to go and download drivers. When new versions come out, they may not be compatible. You have to wait for drivers to come out, all that sort of stuff. Personally, I think Macs look great. I find it hard for somebody, even if they're a die-hard Apple hater, which there are a lot of. I don't understand why people hate Macs. It's just a thing to me. But they look great. A nice casing, they're nice and glossy, they're built tough, they're using really good quality materials. Compared to other brands, sometimes the materials can be a little bit cheaper. They're using cheaper plastics and cheaper components. While Apple, if you buy an Apple computer, it's going to be built well and it's going to look good also. So with all of this Mac stuff, Apple being excellent at their design work, nobody denies that the Macs are designed very well, that they're built to last. There is a bit of a price jump, right? So you generally will find that for the same price point for the components, if I'm looking for a particular CPU speed and particular amount of RAM and this particular size hard drive, you will generally find that if you go to a Dell or a Lenovo, it's going to be cheaper than a Mac, but it won't look as good. So the Mac will generally be a little bit dearer than your non-Mac computers, but there's a reason for that. It's because they are building a better quality product. It looks nicer, it's more slick. Now I just may be biased because I have used Macs for a while. I may just have bought into the Apple fanboy mindset. Everybody can accept and nobody can deny that Apple is extremely good when it comes to marketing. Apple knows their market, they know what the customers want, and they are excellent at marketing. They're good at convincing you that their product is the best. It may not always be the best in every single scenario, but they are great at doing this. Now, a lot of the time it is a bit of marketing fanfare in the background, but what Apple has done is they've created a good culture around the Mac where people buy into the brand. Right? People love the Apple brand. And as a result of that, the Apple product has really increased in sale. They're a lot more popular than they used to be. So a lot of manufacturers, a lot of software providers are now starting to develop more for the Mac. Because the marketing is so good, people go and buy it because they believe that Macs are excellent, which I think they are. And then as a result of that, there's more demand for them, so there's more providers and software providers that actually are designing applications for the Mac. So what you'll find is a number of years ago, it would be hard to find certain programs for your Mac because it may only be available for your Windows computer. If you wanted a particular game, you're into gaming, and you wanted to buy the latest, whatever the latest game may be, it would only be available on the Microsoft on Windows. But nowadays, most providers of software are also designing for the Mac because they recognize that Apple is growing and is growing very, very quickly. They are saying that Apple is going to become the very first $1 trillion company, if it's not already by the time we're watching this video. So clearly they're doing something right. It's not just marketing. If it was just marketing, then there's a lot of good companies that are excellent at marketing, but their products aren't that good. Apple are good at marketing, but they also design good computers, and there's a reason why they've gotten so popular and they're growing so quickly. Now for me, I love dealing with my media. So things like photos and videos. I've just found that working on a Mac is just so much easier. The tools that I need to do all that stuff easily comes standard with your Mac. It comes with the software that you need to be able to go and create amazing photo albums and manage your photos very, very smartly with face recognition and all this other sort of stuff. Editing your videos comes standard as well. Now, yes, the Windows Fleet does come with some stuff that you can do around media management as well, but I just find if you compare the two, standard out of the box, the Apple fleet of computers comes with a lot more customized, tweaked tools, like tools that are customized to be very, very user friendly. Now, overall, the Mac fleet is a little bit less prone to spyware and to viruses than Windows. Now, this is obviously changing very quickly. So a number of years ago, it was very, very rare to find viruses available for the Mac. Nowadays, as Apple has started to grow, the hacking community and all these people that want to destroy your data and just wreak havoc on your computer, they've started to take notice that Apple is growing, so we're going to start to create more viruses and spyware and ransomware and all this sort of stuff for the Mac platform. But still, the Apple product is still a bit more secure than Microsoft. Most people that I know, honestly, are not running an antivirus program on their Mac. It may not be needed. It's very rare that it will be needed. However, there are still software packages out there like Symantec, you've got McAfee, that do release products for the Mac, so you can make them a bit more secure. But at the end of the day, there is still not as much infection towards a Mac computer. Now, what about compatibility? What about my USB sticks, and what about, I want to plug it into a screen, I want to plug a keyboard in, I want to plug in my camera. The Macs can't do that. Yes, it can. The Macs have got all the same ports as most modern other computer brands, right? You buy a Dell, the Dell will have all these ports on the sides. You buy a Mac, the Mac will have all these ports on the side. What you may find is Apple generally is just a little bit ahead of the game. So what you'll find is Apple will release a new Mac and they may remove certain ports ahead of the game, while other manufacturers are still including some of those ports. However, all of the ports that Apple bring on their computers, such as the new USB-C connectors, there's all adapters available. So you can still plug in all of your screens, your VGA, your DVI screens, you can still plug in all your USB cables. You can do all that sort of stuff on a Mac. Some older models of Mac still have got all these original ports, so you can just plug them straight in. The newer ones, you may have to just get some adapters. But as I said, Apple is generally a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to that. So other brands will eventually catch up. Until that time, you can purchase all the adapters. So you can still run it into screens, into projectors if you're using it in a workplace, and plug in all your devices as you can normally. Now, if you're a die-hard Windows guy and you're saying, well, when I move to the Mac, I'm going to have to be stuck running the Mac OS and I can't run Windows. Well, you probably do know that you can run Windows on your Mac. You can run Windows natively on your Mac, so that when your Mac boots up, you can boot into the Mac OS or you can boot into Windows 10 or whatever. You can also use programs such as VMware Fusion or Parallels to actually run your Windows and your Mac side by side, both in the same window. So that option of you being able to run Windows on your Mac is still there. Now, I don't like to say this, but you can potentially buy a Mac computer for its slickness and all that sort of stuff, and then just install Windows on it and not use the Mac OS. I would prefer you to use the Mac OS because I think it's much superior. But that option is there. You can use Windows over the Mac operating system if you so choose to. The thing that I think frustrates me a little bit is a lot of people will say, well, you don't have as much freedom on a Mac as I do on another platform. If I buy a desktop, I can open it up and I can change all these components and do all this sort of stuff. A lot of people don't want to do that. You buy a computer, it's there, right? A Mac may take away your freedom in certain instances because you can't customize it as much. But funnily enough, you can customize it when you are obviously building it. You can actually build a custom Mac. So when you're when you're buying a Mac, you don't have to settle with what they're offering you. You can actually go and upgrade it and put additional RAM in it or upgrade the CPU at the time of purchase. But what a lot of people don't know is that you can also, in certain Mac models, actually upgrade the RAM yourself. So you can open it up and put more RAM in if you need to. But yes, look, to an extent, they're not as customizable as your Windows counterparts, as a Dell, for example. But at the end of the day, nobody really cares. They just want a computer that works, a computer that's fast, and a computer that does what it needs to do. Now, I know what you're saying. I've worked on Windows all these years and I pick up a Mac and I just don't know how it works. It's not as smart, it's not as good as Windows. What I generally tend to find is people who have worked on the Microsoft fleet, on the Windows environment for a long time, can find it a little bit challenging to go to the Mac. But from fresh eyes, generally the Mac is a bit easier to use and it just works. So somebody who has not had exposure to a computer before, let's say if it's somebody learning how to use a computer for the first time, generally they will find it a lot easier to delve into the Apple Mac as opposed to a Windows computer. So that is my overview of why I like Macs. I think they look cool, I think they work very, very well, and I would definitely recommend anybody who came and asked me what computer should I buy, I'd always say, look, if price isn't an option, if you want a computer that is reliable, a computer that will hold its value a lot longer, which is another good point, I would always say go for a Mac. Yes, it's going to be different, but you're going to have less headaches. Yes, you have to learn some new, you have to learn where the icons are. They're on the right side instead of the left side. There's no start menu like in Windows. There's this dock down the bottom. There's a few slight differences, of course, but overall, they're not too different. There's still a nice graphic user interface. There's still, on the Mac, you've got a Finder. On Windows, you've got Windows Explorer, but you can still copy paste, you can still drag and drop, you can still open up all the same files, you can still open up, your Microsoft Word and Excel, you can open up pictures, the web browsing is the same. So it's not too different, it's just learning, these different, where the stuff is. The stuff on the Mac will be just in different areas, right? But overall, you're going to find that it's going to last you a little bit longer, and once you get into a Mac, you realize just how great it is. And it's very rare for somebody who's now, worked on a Mac and worked on a Mac long enough for them to say, oh, now I prefer Windows, or I'll ditch my Mac to go back to Windows. It's very rare. It's rare for somebody to be like that. That's what I generally find anyway. So I hope you found this helpful. Look, comment down below if you disagree. I'm sure you will disagree. I work, as I said, in IT, so I'm surrounded by people who just have a thing against Apple. They just hate Apple. They hate Apple's closed system, that you can't do this and you can't do this, and then in the iPhone you can't open. It's not open source like like on Linux. I can't do all this stuff like on Android. I've heard it all before. But look, I would say give it a try. I think Macs are great. Comment below if you disagree with me. If you agree with me, I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.
So if you found that video helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel, Digital Byte Computing, just on the button there for more videos.